Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was Betrayed, Cheated and Became Deker, the Cursed Warrior movie. Before we start, please go support Excel Maximus Drive for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Time passed, Triexa was defeated, Khaos Brigade was defeated, everything was at peace, but everything comes to an end. My wives, whom I loved the most, were sleeping with who I thought was my friend, including Rem, formerly known as Draig. My anger was incalculable. The worst thing is that later I found out that everyone knew about this deception. I felt pathetic. I was standing in the doorway where the hitches were behind me. Rias, Issei, please can we fix this crying? Issei, don't Rias, there's no solution to this, with a dead tone of voice. I don't know how much time has passed since that day. Right now I'm walking with Uramasa after making him erase all feelings towards the supernatural. But now there are only a few small things that I can protect and that keep me in the light. Dad, what's wrong? Said a little boy of no more than 10 years old, speaking to a man of about 30 years old. Man, nothing, son said, sitting on a rock. Hyodo Issei no longer exists, he is just a vague memory. I am Deker, the cursed warrior. Prologue. In a forest you could only hear the air hitting the leaves of the trees in the dark night, but you could see a small light from a flashlight where there was a black-haired man of about 30 years old with a strong complexion and old Japanese clothes. In front of him there is a tent that the man took from a store, in other words he stole it and knocked out the store owner. The black-haired man looked at the store and looked at the sky. How much time has passed, he said to himself, looking at the stars. Not that I care, but what has happened to them, he said again, to nothing, but something is heard in the store where a boy of about 10 years old is seen leaving. Child, Dad, what's wrong? He said with his eyes half open from sleep. Nothing, Ryuk, rest, he said with a neutral tone. Ryuk, are you sure, Dad? You should also rest, said the little boy looking at his father. I'll be fine, you need to rest, especially for a child of your age. Ryuk, of course, Dad, he said, going back into the store, and a while later the man checks if he has already fallen asleep. After confirming that he has, he returns to where he takes out his katana from the case. Calm down, Uramasa, soon your hunger will be satisfied, he said to the katana as if it were alive, and put it back in its case while looking at the fire. 2. Go Deker, I didn't think I'd find you, a voice was heard in the forest. Deker. I already said that you weren't going to disappear so easily, he said with a look that reflected no emotion. Haha, yes, although I don't know why you're protecting that human child, you're talking to yourself, said the voice mockingly. Deker, that child is the only thing that matters to me, he said, frowning very slightly. We'll see how long it lasts, said the still mocking voice, disappearing into the air. The next day, the man and the boy were seen at the top of a hill. The boy was carrying a suitcase that was a bit big for his height, but it seemed like he had no problem carrying it. Ryuk, Dad, this city is where you were born, said the child curiously. Deker, yes, son, this is Kwa, he said, looking at the city. A while later, father and son were walking through the streets of Kwa, receiving several glances from mature, young, widowed and even married women, although several people also looked strangely at the katana he was carrying. But he did not pay attention to them. After all, he only came for one reason. Deker, the fisher should be somewhere in the city, he thought while walking. Ryuk, Dad, we haven't had breakfast. I'm hungry, he said, pulling his father's sleeve. Deker, okay, let's go to a restaurant, he said, still walking, and sees a family restaurant. Let's go in, he said, entering with his son. Several families were eating and talking. Both sit at a table away from most of the people. The older black-haired man sits, leaving his katana next to his seat, and the younger black-haired man does the same with his backpack. A waitress approaches. Waitress, welcome, whoever you want, she said in a friendly tone. Deker, some scrambled eggs, bread and juice for the child, he said indifferently. Waitress, and you, sir, a little annoyed by the older black-haired man's attitude. Deker, nothing is everything, he said with his indifferent attitude. Waitress, okay, I'll bring it to you, she said, leaving while the younger black-haired boy played with a wooden fox figurine. Ryuk, he laughs happily, playing with the figure while the older black-haired man looked at this, but if someone looked closely he had a very small smile on his lips, Then you can hear the door where you see two people enter, two girls aged 18 and 16. Urza, I'm sure it was a good idea without coming without Akino and Kaneko Okasan, said the white-haired girl, a little nervous, going to a table with the black-haired girl. Urza, calm down Lana, they won't get mad. After all, they're busy with commitments, she said in an annoyed tone of voice because of the word commitment. Lana, you're right, she sighed dejectedly, sitting at a table that was ironically behind the black-haired man's table. Deker, Akino, Kaneko, thought the black-haired man, feeling annoyed when he heard those names. Ryuk, Dad, is something wrong? Said the little black-haired boy curiously. Deker, it's okay Ryuk, he said, looking at his son, and then the waitress arrives. Waitress, here you go, little one, she said, smiling, leaving the food for the little one. Ryuk, thanks, he said, taking the cutlery and starting to eat. A while later, after the younger black-haired boy finished breakfast and picked up his things, the older boy goes to where the cashier is. Cashier, it would be 250 yen please, he said, while the black-haired man takes out some coins, gives them to him, and leaves with his son while the girls also finished breakfast. Urza, it was good, although it's not the same as Ajo-Kasan's cuisine, she said, wiping herself with a napkin. Lana, you're right, she said, getting up. While with Deker, he continued walking next to his son, who was still playing with his figure, but he collided with the little one, causing him to throw his figure. Ag, my clothes, said a 17-year-old black-haired boy with his shirt stained with a yellow liquid from a glass that was now on the floor. Hey brat, watch where you're going, he said, annoyed, but the little one doesn't pay attention to him and picks up his figurine. Ryuk, it didn't break, he said, sighing in relief. Brat grabs him by the shirt. You better pay me for the clothes, he said, annoyed, but his doll is taken by the older one. Deker, what do you think you're doing? He said with his emotionless gaze, squeezing the boy's wrist. Your brat ruined my clothes, said annoyed. Deker, you're a brat too, he said, pushing him, making him fall to the ground. Let's go, Ryuk. Ryuk, hi, he said, going to his father, while the redhead got up with a furious look. This won't stay like this, you heard me. No one messes with ex-Gremry, no one. Screamed with a look of hatred and fury. Chapter 1. After that meeting, the black-haired man was on a bench while his son chased the pigeons. Deker, Gremry, how is that bastard still alive? I thought with slight annoyance. While in the underworld, in an office, there was a redhead sitting doing his paperwork. Sirzex, I curse whoever has already created the paperwork, mumbled annoyed, doing his paperwork, and that a redhead with an enviable body that didn't seem to be over 25 years old enters. Rias, what brings you here? Said, happy to see her sister. Rias, sighs, I just wanted to talk to someone, she said, sitting on a chair that was in front of the redhead's table. Sirzex, it's about X-Truth, he said, while seeing his sister nod with a sad look. Rias, I don't know what to do with him anymore. Every day he looks more like tears start to come out. The redhead gets up and hugs her. Sirzex, already laughs, I know it's becoming very similar to Vala. But even though it hurts me, it's all our fault for what happened, he said, while his sister cried in his chest. Rias, I just want my Issei sniff to come back, she said, while more tears fell. Sirzex, you know it's not possible. If he's still alive, I doubt he wants to come back, and he's also wanted for attempted murder, he said, but it only made the redhead cry louder. Back to Qua. The older black-haired man watched his son eat vanilla ice cream. Ryuk, oh my head, he said, putting a hand on his head because of the brain pain. Deker, sighs, you should eat less fast, he said, stroking her head. Ryuk, yes, he said, no longer feeling his brain frozen. Dad, one question. Deker, which one? Said, looking at him. Ryuk, why don't I go to school like the other kids? He said curiously, since in all the cities he's been to with his father, he sees several children going to school. Deker stays silent, not trying to think of something to answer. That is that we don't have a fixed home. That's why you can't, he said, telling a half-truth. Ryuk, okay, he said dejectedly, but the black-haired boy strokes his head again. Deker, when we get a place, I promise to put you in school, he said, and is hugged by his son. Ryuk, thanks, Dad. Smiling, while the older black-haired man just patted him but had a very undetectable smile. Meanwhile, that's where they are from. There were two 25-year-old women walking, one with black hair and a ponytail and the other with white hair. Not applicable. Ignore the ghost wind. How lucky we were able to finish those commitment papers, Akino-senpai, said the tired white-haired girl. Akino, era, I'm also happy. Kaneko-chan, I'm not going to let any pervert get close to my girl, smiling Deja with a dark aura behind her, scaring all the nearby men except our black-haired man and the little one. Kaneko, yes, but I wonder if I'll get someone like Issei-senpai, she said with her eyes lowered. Akino, yes, I hope so too, and they don't do stupid things like the one we did, she said sadly. At that, both of them see the younger black-haired boy playing with some wooden figures next to Deker. For a moment both of them imagined an Issei playing with his children. Kaneko, Issei-senpai whispered as tears fell from her face, but they both blinked, making them return to reality. Akino, better go eat something, she said, trying to forget the illusion she saw walking next to the white-haired girl. Back with Deker. Deker, son, it's time to go, he said, getting up. Ryuk, yes, picks up his figures and puts them in his backpack, loads the backpack and follows his father. Deker walks but stops dead. Ryuk, Dad? He said, tilting his head. Deker, Ryuk, stay at the fountain, I'll be right back, he said seriously. Ryuk, but Dad's scared of being alone. Deker, calm down, remember what I taught you to defend yourself. Ryuk, oh okay, he said, going to the fountain, and the black-haired man runs towards an abandoned warehouse, enters and sees a strange crack in the ground that shines red. With reddish water, the Samsun River is already leaking, he says to himself, where he takes out a calabash-shaped thermos and collects enough of the water. Deker, now to hide it, he said, taking out a paper. Puts it in water and it melts, and the water and the crack become invisible. Deker, another crack in case of emergency, he thought while returning to the park where his son was waiting for him. I came back, he said, arriving at his side. Ryuk, Dad, where were you? He said curiously. Deker, I was checking some things, he said as he looked at it starting to get dark. Let's go back to the forest to camp, he said, getting up, followed by his son. A while later. Father and son were on a high hill not far from Kwa where the whole city could be seen. Deker grabs a pot and takes out a can of tomato soup, opens the can, pours it into the pot and puts the pot on top of the heat while he waits for it to heat up. A while later. After Ryuk ate the soup, he went to sleep and the older black-haired man cleaned his katana. What is that smell? A female voice was heard, but the black-haired man was still cleaning. Wow, human, you are very handsome. It's a shame that you will be my food, said the voice coming out of the shadows to show a naked woman from the hips up, quite beautiful, but the lower part had the body of a spider. A renegade demon. Deker finishes cleaning his katana and puts it back in its sheath without a care in the world. Renegade, don't ignore me, human! She lunges at him, but the black-haired man uses his katana that was inside its sheath and hits her in the stomach, sending her against several trees, breaking them. August Bwag vomits blood. Deker checks the camping tent and his son was still asleep. He walks towards the renegade who moved away a few meters because of the blow and was trying to stand up. Renegade, damn you, I'll kill you, she said, changing her face to a face of sadistic hatred, throwing herself at him, but he dodges it and breaks his leg with the sheath of his kata. Agg, damn you, when I'm done with you, that brat will remain HMNDF. In her mouth was the black-haired man's katana. Deker, SSHHH, he's sleeping, he said, referring to his son, but the renegade goes blank when she sees the dangerous man with a red flame coming out of his left eye. Deker, now shut up, he said, pulling his katana down, tearing out the renegade's jaw, shedding a lot of blood and falling dead. MHF looks at the corpse and returns to his camp. Meanwhile, at Issei Hyodo's old house. The big mansion, all its lights were off except for one where there was a blonde of about 17 years old. La la la, said humming while grabbing some drawings, but a blonde woman of about 25 years old with green eyes enters. 2. Erica is already late, she has to go to sleep, scolds the blonde with a not so enviable body but with an angelic face. Erica. Hi Oka-san, she said, putting away her sketchbook, and then the older blonde's cell phone rings. Moshi Moshi, he said, answering his cell phone. 2. Asia, said a very angelic female voice. Asia. Gabriel-san, what a nice surprise, said the blonde happily. Gabriel. I just called to say hello and to see how Erica-chan is, said the woman on the other end of the phone. Asia. Well, she's grown up now, she said, walking to her own room. Gabriel, and you haven't heard anything from him, he said sadly as the older blonde entered her room and locked it. Asia, no, you think so? Sniff couldn't continue because tears started to come out. Gabriel, I don't want to think about that, although it's likely Issei-kun is someone who doesn't die easily, said the other woman, trying to sound positive, but her voice was broken. Asia, yes, you're right, she said, trying to stop her tears. Gabriel, yes, tomorrow there will also be a meeting with the leaders. Asia, okay, I'll go tomorrow, she said, hanging up, and from a secret drawer on her wall she takes out a photo with a younger her and a brunette Issei-san, she said, hugging the photo since it was the only thing she had left of him. Somewhere in Kwa, there was a figure on top of the tallest building. The hands of destiny are moving, said with a female voice, and another figure appeared at his side. 2. He is someone who defies his destiny. After all, he was supposed to have killed that child, said the other figure in a female voice. Our Lady no longer knows what the fate of that mortal is, said the first one with a somewhat worried tone. 2. He is no longer mortal or halfway there. It only remains to be seen how things develop, said the second figure, disappearing. The dice were thrown and the hands moved, blood moved forward like rivers of water. The voice said to no one in particular, while sounds of hands moving were heard. Chapter 2. Academia Kwa. Kwa Academy was a girls-only academy 25 years ago until it became co-ed. Now we see two students talking. Hey Kirito, do you know if Rias-san is up to something with her ex? The black-haired man with earrings said with some annoyance, but they were far from the other students to prevent them from hearing their conversation. Kirito, I don't know Ryota, but I'm starting to get desperate, he said, sighing tiredly when screams are heard and a redhead enters and approaches her brothers. Kirito, my, what a surprise that you came to visit us, he said with some sarcasm. Mio, I didn't come for fun, Okasan said, to let you know because there's a faction meeting, she said, annoyed and in a low voice. Ryota, yes, whatever you say, he said without much importance, causing a twitch in the redhead's eyes. Mio, MHP, they are unbearable, he says, closing his eyes with an annoyed expression, leaving the classroom. Underworld. The three leaders of the biblical faction were talking. Azazel, Sirzex, how is Seraphal? He said somewhat dejectedly. Sirzex, his mental state has improved, but just mentioning Issei's name makes him lose his sanity. What I fear most is for his daughter, he said, sighing heavily. Michael, you know it was our fault for letting them commit adultery, he said sadly. I managed to make Gabriel not fall, but I couldn't do the same for Irina. Sirzex, yes, do you think he survived? Azazel, the fallen dragon kills any male, although they say that the only way to be saved is to be consumed by the Avenger, he said seriously. Michael, do you think he survived, sought revenge? Azazel, I can't guarantee anything. We haven't heard from him for almost 18 years, so there are only two possibilities. 1. He died from the fall, or 2. He doesn't want to see our faces anymore and that's why he's hiding, he said with a sad look. Sirzex, do you think he's started a family? He said, a little scared, because if that's the case and the girls find out, who knows what could happen, especially since some of them have a very delicate mental state. Azazel, there are so many possibilities, Sirzex, so many that it would take us a long time to say them. We just have to continue, he said, getting up. Michael, Azazel, is it okay if I can visit Irina? Azazel, sure, well, see you later for the meeting. Both teleport in a magic circle, leaving the redhead alone. He gets up, goes to the window, and a silver-haired girl comes in. Sirzex, Grafia, have you been able to contact Rem? He said, looking at his wife. Grafia, no, according to what Mio-sama said, she is somewhere within the limits of the dragon territory. She only comes out when she needs to go get food or something that has to do with Mio-sama. She said something sad? Sirzex just looks at the sky of the underworld. Deker. The black-haired man sitting on a log looked at the city. Deker, hundreds of fragile lives, seeing people like ants from his position, he turns to look at his son, who was looking curiously at a squirrel. The black-haired man blinks and everything turns black except for the silhouette of his son, who had a sphere inside him, mostly white, but there was a part as red as blood. He blinks again, seeing everything normal again. Ryuk, Dad, is something wrong? Deja feeding the squirrel some acorns. Deker, nothing, son, he said calmly. Apparently he is still stable. He thought he knew that his son had power within him. If they find out, they will do everything possible to take him. Already at night faction meeting. In the room were on the side of the demons. El Sequito Gremry. Surzix. Grafia. Serafal. Mio. X. Y. El Sequito Citri. Angelus. Gabriel. Michael. Griselda. Kados. Azazel. Kirito. Penemu. Yokais. Yasaka. Nu. Riot. Asgardianos. Odin. Thor. Olympicos. Zeus. Poseidon. Hades. Surzex. Well, I called this meeting to inform you that a few weeks ago we discovered a secret base of the Khaos Brigade, he said seriously, surprising many. Michael, how is it possible that after the war we went through everything? He said in surprise. Surzex, I know, but the strangest thing is that they found corpses of the same members. Azazel, wait, are you telling us that someone found the base before us? He said seriously. Surzex, that's right. They found bodies cut and torn to pieces. According to the soldiers, they could have been there for about 11 years. He said seriously. Zeus, that's disturbing. More or less how many Khaos Brigade soldiers there were, he said curiously. Surzex, 1,000, he said without hesitation, making everyone open their eyes, and what worries me most is that the soldiers are sure that it was the work of a single man. Michael, it's impossible unless he has a high level of power, he said seriously and worried. Serafal, we thought that whoever attacked had taken something, but when the soldiers checked, everything was intact, she said seriously. Azazel, so who attacked them, killed them, and that's it? Odin, it seems so, and it was 11 years before we knew it. Kandika. In the forest was Deker sitting in the lotus position. Ryuk. He playing with the squirrel, but it starts running further into the forest. Hey, come back. Chases it. Further into the forest. Rook, where could he have gone? He said, looking for the squirrel, when he starts to shake and sees a portal where two people come out of it, taking a small crater not far from where he was. That's strange, great. He said, excited for an adventure, and starts to approach where he sees two people, a boy and a girl. August Issei, are you okay? Said the blue-haired girl, worried. Issei, yes, I'm fine, and what do you say about your Fabia? Said the brown-haired boy, worried, making the blue-haired girl blush a little. Fabia, I am fine, she said, but then they both hear a creak and turn around where the sound was and see Ryuk. What is a kid doing here? Ryuk, are they aliens? Said the boy innocently. Issei, huh? He said, confused when he saw the child. Fabia, no, little one, she said, approaching and crouching down to his height. What are you doing here? Ryuk, I was chasing a squirrel, and then I saw them, he said calmly. Fabia, and your parents? Ryuk, Papa is meditating. Issei, and your mother? Ryuk, I don't have one, he said, making the brown-haired boy tense up, and receives a sniff from the blue-haired girl. Issei said, rubbing the back of his head. Fabia, would you mind telling us where we are? She said, trying to change the awkward moment. Ryuk, my dad says we're in Quaz Forest, said the little one, making both teenagers look at each other. Issei, could you take us to your dad's to ask him some questions? He said, and the little one just nods and starts to guide them. Draig, partner, shouldn't we contact the others? Mentally said. Issei, yes, Draig, but with all this different dimensions and the citadel, I don't know if it's our dimension, the brown-haired man said mentally, to see that they arrived at a small camp. Ryuk, we're here, Dad, said the little boy, calling the man who stood up and approached. Deker, Ryuk, what did I tell you about bringing people? He said with a monotonous face but with serious signs. Ryuk, sorry, Dad, he said, bowing his head, and the man just sighs. Deker, I know very well that you would bring them for a reason, he said, caressing his son's head. Now tell me why you brought them, he said, so that the little one could explain to him that they came out of a hole in the sky. Ryuk needs to talk to them, so go play, but not too far from here, okay? He said for the little one to nod and leave so that the other three could sit down. Issei, We don't want to cause you problems, sir, he said seriously. His instincts told him that he was not an ordinary person. Draig also agreed. Deker, I want to know who they are, he said, putting his katana next to him. Fabia, my name is Fabia Sheen. Issei, I am Hyodo Issei, he said, making everything remain in a sepulchral silence. Deker, that's not possible. Issei, why? Said confused. Deker, Issei Hyodo died 18 years ago. Change of scene. A redhead was seen hitting a rock with her fists, cracking it each time. Growling, the continues hitting until a large dragon lands near her. Tannen, any news, he said without looking at him. Tannen, no Rem, I think it's time you admitted that this death. Crack. The rock turns to dust. Rem, don't even think about finishing that sentence, she said, looking at him, while her eyes looked like green fire. Tannen, I'm just being realistic, and if there was a minimal possibility that he was alive, do you think he would come back, especially since you gave birth to a daughter that isn't his? He said seriously. Rem clenches her fists, causing blood to come out. Elsewhere. Okay, it's been 17 years, don't you think you should go back? Some said to the blue ones on her back. Vala, why Albion? I ruined the lives of not only the girls of Hyodo, but also made them have children of their own. Besides, they hate me to death, she said, looking at the sky. Albion, you know that sooner or later you will have to face the real consequences, he said seriously. Back at camp. Everything had fallen into great silence. Issei, what? He said, trying to deny it. Deker, Issei Hyodo died 18 years ago, said again without hesitation. Fabia, that can't be, she said, looking at the brown-haired boy worried. Issei, and how did he die? He said seriously. Deker, factions, he said, making that one word making everything make sense. Issei, and how do you know that? He said very seriously. Deker, because I was there that day. Chapter 2 Part 2. The emotions Issei felt were fear, confusion, and a little anger. Issei, what do you mean? How did it happen? And why did they do it? Deker, sighs, I must tell from the beginning 20 years ago. Everyone sat down to listen to the story. Deker, 20 years ago was the victory against the beast of the apocalypse Triexa. Fabia, and what happened? Deker, 2 months later the news of Issei Hyodo's wedding was released. That made Fabia a little jealous, but she hid it. Deker, after that, 1 year he found out that his harem was pregnant. Issei suddenly began to remember Driscoll's monologue when they were accused of killing Issei. Deker, unfortunately, he couldn't be with his harem for too long since the factions gave him a lot of work, so 8 months passed. Issei began to process that a little while Deker continued. Deker, and something that surprises me is that the red dragon was female. Fabia, no wonder, we met female versions of Draig and Albion. Deker, what are you talking about? Raising his eyebrows a little. Issei, answers, a counterpart of mine from another universe came to see me and we met their female versions of Draig and Albion. Deker, that explains why you're alive. Fabia curiously asked. Fabia, could you please continue? Rias, yes, Dad, he said next to Fabia. She stroked his little head and the boy smiled. Deker, well, one day he came home 18 years ago. Flashback. Issei, finally a break. Issei, and what happened next? Issei, entering when he hears noises, the girls must be having a lesbian orgy again, he said, going up to the room when he hears something that frightens him. Rias, I went harder, the redhead's voice was heard. Both of them had their mouths open. Issei, what? He whispered, opening the door a little only to feel his heart break. Issei couldn't believe it, and much of Valley, the man who was more than just a rival to him. Issei, his eyes lost any shine when he saw the image of his entire harem having sex with Valley, and he simply crashed into the wall next to the door, while he continued listening to everything. All the viewers of the flashback did was imagine that suffering. Rem, oh yeah, Valley used that tongue, the voice of the Crimson Dragon was heard, which broke his heart even more since he had broken his back trying to find a way to get her out of the sacred gear. Draig, the dragon, felt dirty and sick thanks to his counterpart. Rias, a little confused since he was very innocent. Issei, and how did he die? Deker, there's still time for that. Fabia, and what happened next? Issei, sitting on the couch watching the television that wasn't on for how long he doesn't know. Rias, coming down with only a transparent robe that left nothing to the imagination. Lala was humming the song that Issei made for her. Issei and Fabia already imagined what was going to continue. Issei silently gets up and turns around. Rias, with her back turned, drinking a glass of milk. Lala Kya gets scared, dropping the glass and the milk. Issei? Issei, hello Rias, he said without any emotion. Fabia, this is going to get ugly, said the blue-haired girl. Rias, how long have you been there? She said nervously. Issei, enough to know what they were doing, he said as he headed for the door. Rias, Issei, wait, she shouted loud enough, making all the girls get off, including the alarmed Alvin. Issei already imagined what was coming. Rias, please Issei, this has a solution. Issei, don't laugh, there's no solution. Fabia, and what did they do? Issei, about to leave but a barrier is created. Issei, I can already imagine what's coming. Issei, sees several magic circles where the leaders come out. Fabia, and what are they doing there? Surzex, Issei, we need you to stay seriously. Issei, you knew it, he said in a whisper. Azazel, boy, I know this looks bad. Issei, you knew it, he said louder, almost shouting. Odin, brat, what? Issei, you knew it. There was an awkward silence. Rias, Dad, I'm hungry, he said, touching his tummy. Fabia goes to where he left the Citadel ship they stole, takes a bag of marshmallows and gives it to Rias. Fabia, be small. Rias, thank you ma'am, he said, causing a twitch in Fabia's eyebrow, and Issei holding back his laughter, and Fabia gave Issei a small punch. Fabia, Deker-san, what's next? Issei, angry, tries to escape. Alvian, divide. Issei, falls to the ground a little tired. Issei, let me see if I understand. Everyone switched me for Valley, and the leaders knowing it did nothing? Deker, yes, although it was only carnal attraction. Fabia, I see why my sister told me not to trust them. Deker, because if Issei discovered his adultery, he would leave the alliance, so he sent him to meetings with useless topics. Issei activates his armor. Not applicable. Here you still have their powers even with Draig/Rem out of the boost gear. Issei, I'll kill you! He roared, launching himself at Vala, who was also wearing his armor. Fabia, she notices that Deker stops talking, and what happened next? Deker, I don't remember very well, I only know that they defeated him and that he escaped badly injured. Fabia, so he's not dead? Curious. Deker, it is unknown. His body was never found. Everyone thinks he is dead, he said without much importance. Then he sees Rias with a small box. Deker, Rias, what did I tell you about playing that snare drum seriously? Rias, sorry Dad, it fell out of the bag, he said, a little scared. Issei, what is that? Curious and at the same time nervous because that box gave him a bad feeling. Deker, you don't need to know, very serious, and the atmosphere became tense. Fabia, and what are you doing here in the forest? She said, trying to change the atmosphere. Deker, we'll camp here for a few days, he said, leaving aside his seriousness. Fabia, and your house? Deker, we are nomads. We go anywhere in the world, he said simply. Then the brown-haired man thinks of something. Issei, wait, what if you're looking for my version? He said nervously because in all the time they were talking he forgot to lower his aura. Underworld a few minutes ago. The redhead was finishing his paperwork when he felt an all-too-familiar energy. Surzex, this no, it can't be, he whispered and activated a communications circle. Grafia called Azazel, Michael and Ajuka to go and get there as quickly as possible. A few minutes later. The two Maos, the former leader of Grigory and the overlord of the sky, were already gathered. Ajuka, Surzex, what's going on? Confused by the urgent call. Surzex, I felt a very familiar energy a while ago. It was the same as Issei's, he said more seriously, surprising the other three. Azazel, no joke? Very serious. Sirzek's, Azazel would never joke about something like that. The three of us have to go as soon as possible, very seriously. Ajuka. If any of the girls arrive, look for us to distract them. They are not 100% recovered yet. I don't want to give them false hope. Azazel, then it's better to go. Back to the present with Deker. Deker, lower your aura, he said near the ship that Fabia had put in stealth mode. Issei, why now? He said with a low aura. Deker, they have to leave as soon as possible. I don't want to know what the factions could do if they knew about the multiverse, more seriously. Fabia, but the ship is damaged. Deker, I'll distract them as much as possible while you fix it. He gives the box to Ryuk. Protect this, son. Fabia, we're not going to leave you. Issei, Fabia is right seriously, but in that they see Ryuk. Ryuk, Dad, I'm scared, he said, hugging his father, but he saw 3 magic circles starting to form. Issei/Fabia clenched their fists helplessly. Fabia, okay, takes Ryuk, and the 3 of them go inside the ship, and Deker turns around seeing the 3 leaders appear. Location? A white-haired man came out of a doorway into a large hall. Uramasa, I see your back, said a person coming down the stairs from the lobby. Uramasa, yes, Mr. Darkeye, he said respectfully. Darkeye, did you find what you needed? He said as he came to the front of him, and the white-haired man took out a strange box. Uramasa, here it is, hands the box to Darkeye with all due respect. What is it? Darkeye, you'll know soon. Uramasa dialed, putting the small box in one of his pockets. Go to the meeting room. Dan, Reaper, and Calb should be there already. Tell them I'll be a little late. Uramasa, yes, he said, and then left. Darkeye, one less for left, he thinks, and with his hands together on his lower back he walks to a room and enters where there was a sofa for one person, a table, and another larger sofa where a woman is sitting. I'm sorry to make you wait. TSK, it was about time, said the woman with a body that even Aphrodite herself would envy, a little annoyed. Darkeye, it's been ages since we last saw each other, and not even a hello, he said in a gentlemanly and slightly mocking manner, sitting on a chair in front of the sofa. Growls a little annoyed, believe me, I wouldn't have come if it weren't for the fact that I need you. Darkeye, oh, am I just a tool? You're hurting me. I thought we had something, he said with false sadness, causing the woman to get even more upset. You know I don't want anything to do with you or the creators anymore, seriously. Darkeye, I know, and the only reason I'm helping you is for old time's sake, he said, his arms crossed. So? What do you need? Colin takes out a photo where there was a man who was none other than Deker. I need you to tell me where this man is. Very serious. Chapter 2 Final. While with Raider, having a little orange juice. How good it is to do nothing without responsibilities, he said, drinking until he sees a lot of portals. Followers, to him. Raider, oh shit. Silence. It was all that could be felt in the hungry atmosphere. Deker was in front of the 3 leaders of the 3 main factions. Sirzek looks at the man with curiosity. Who are you? He said, sure that this was where he felt Draig's presence. Deker, no one cares, he said coldly. Azazel, oy, why so much aggression? He said with a frown. Michael, he's only human, so we can erase his memory, said the Archangel as he approached, but then I felt a breeze, but he looked down and saw a rather large horizontal tuft on the ground. Deker, nice try, angel from heaven, but no supernatural being will lay a finger on my mind, he said seriously, but the 3 leaders also became serious. Azazel, you're not an ordinary human, huh? Deker, what I am doesn't matter to you, he said, turning his back on them. Leave now or assume the consequences, he said without looking at them, although he could kill them at that moment, but he knew that he would draw the attention of the factions that could defeat them using his power, but he knew that he would draw the attention of her, and the last thing he wants is to endanger his son. Sirzek, not until we find someone, he said seriously. Deker, I don't know who you're looking for and I don't care, so leave. Azazel, not until we verify if the person we are looking for is there, he said seriously. Deker, very well, turns around, face to face, you asked for it, taking the handle of his sword. Surzek launches a sphere of destruction. Deker cuts it with his swords in the sheath, leaving thousands of fragments of spheres. Counterattack, he said, making you feel small spheres of destruction go towards the leaders, who activated magic circles of protection that fully met the attack, making an explosion that left smoke, which was seen and showed the leaders with their magic circles. But they were noticeably cracked. Azazel, Surzek, how much power did you put into that attack? He said, still incredulous that the man had been able to return them. Surzek, little like demons cracked our magic circles, said the redhead. Deker, disappear and appear in front of Azazel. Surzek, Azazel, he said, throwing many spheres of destruction. Meanwhile, with the others, Issei and Fabia were watching the fight while Ryuk was hugging Fabia. Ryuk, I don't want them to hurt Dad, said the boy. He didn't really seem scared by the violence, but was more concerned for his father. Fabia, calm down, little one, stroking the child's head. Issei, I have to help him, he said, but is stopped by Fabia. Fabia, Issei, be careful, you must not use Draig's power. Issei, understood, he said, taking out his morpher and jumps great power. Meanwhile, with the leaders, the three were attacking Deker, who was dodging the attacks, but in that, Issei changed his sword to a pistol and shoots the three faction leaders. The cavalry has arrived, he said, next to Deker, who looked at the armor with some interest. Surzek, who are you? He said, standing up. Issei, Magna Defender, he said, pointing at them with his sword. Michael makes a magic circle, attacking with a large sphere of light. Deker, he moves his sword a little, creating a huge windstorm that makes the spheres collide with each other and explode. Issei, incredible trick, he said, impressed. Azazel, balance breaker, he said, activating his artificial sacred gear. Here, he never gave it to Asia according to the manga. Issei, it seems the old man didn't give it to the nun here, the brown-haired boy thought as he lunged at him with his sword. Surzek, who the hell are you guys? He said, arching at the swordsman. Deker, without answering, he hits him in the face with his sword, making him spit out a little blood and a tooth. Michael, Surzek, he said, but he can't attack because Deker hangs him on the stomach, making him fall to his knees. With Issei. Issei, time to end this. The attack hits Azazel directly, causing him to be sent to his other two friends. Deker, this piece has made them weak, he thought, looking at the great faction leaders lying pathetically. Michael, how can they? He can't finish because all three of them are smashed to the ground by Deker, Issei. Deker, okay, both go to Ryuk and Fabia's. Ryuk, Dad! Hugging Deker, and he just strokes her head. Fabia, I'm glad you're both okay, she said, smiling. Deker, well, I think it's time for you to go home, he said seriously. Issei, very well, I hope to see you again. Deker, he ties her hand to shake it. Deker shakes Issei's hand. Fabia, goodbye, little one, she said, stroking Ryuk's head. Ryuk, goodbye, ma'am, he said, making Fabia have a vein in her forehead. Issei, we better go now, he said, nervously opening the portal, taking an angry Fabia and closing the portal. Deker sighs, and I thought I would get rid of strange things. The man thought about that. He sees the crashed ship and buries his weapon in the ground, and everything starts to shake while the earth opens and swallows the ship and is sawed again. Ryuk, while with stars in his eyes. Unknown location. The red-haired woman was walking in what looked like a cave and came to a ravine in the cave. You finally deigned to appear, Katerian, said a dark voice while the woman simply rolls her eyes. Katerina, hello to you too, Aatrox, said the woman to see a being emerge from the abyss. Aatrox, what did you expect if you slept with another man, growls. Katerina, don't be a hypocrite, you've slept with mortals throughout the millennia, she said with annoyance, not caring about the creature's growl. Aatrox, so you had a bastard? He said with hatred. Katerina, what I do with my eternal life is none of your business anymore, she said, changing shape. At that, Aatrox begins to shrink and falls in front of Katerina. Aatrox, don't try your luck with me, Katerina, he said face to face. Katerina, you know I'm just as strong as you, she said with a more demonic voice, making Aatrox growl. Aatrox, why did you go see Dark Eye? Katerina, I told you what I do is none of your business, she said, turning her back on him and walking away. Aatrox, grrraarggg roars, making the mountain tremble. Chapter 3. Issei, it's not a joke, right? He said incredulously. Rias, of course not, Issei, we are pregnant. Asia, that's right, Issei and the ex-nun smiling. Kaneko, we'll have kittens, Issei-senpai, said the lowly. Issei, this is the best news I've ever received. Smiling while being hugged by his harem. Wait until I tell the boys about this, especially Vala, smiling, but his harem made a face of few friends. Rias, you don't need to talk to the white dragon, she said coldly. Issei, why? He said confused. Kuroka, it's unnecessary, just like the redhead. Issei, okay? He said confused but as quickly hugged. Harem, we love you, Issei. The brown-haired boy just smiled even though he felt a slight migraine. 6 months later. The brown-haired man was lying down with his harem after a hex session that had been quite a lot in recent months, although it had been delicate due to his pregnancy, but concentrating on this moment, he was moving his head in his sleep. Leave me alone. It's for your own good. I hate them. Don't worry, everything will return to normal. The brown-haired boy opens his eyes and stands up, breathing heavily. Kuroka, Issei, something's wrong, Naya, said the Nikomata, half asleep. Issei, nothing, Sleep said, caressing the black-haired girl's head, making them fall asleep. That's been the same thing we've heard for 6 months, thought the brown-haired girl. Since his harem told him they were pregnant, voices came out of his head again and again. He tried to tell his harem, but every time he was going to say something about it, he couldn't articulate words, as if his body didn't want to obey him. Every day they became longer, even when he didn't sleep. At this moment, he was sitting in a cafeteria holding his head. Issei, why the hell can't I tell them? He thought frustratedly, trying to silence the voices that sounded like several people he knew. Footsteps were heard in the solitary fortress with lighting in few places, and in one of those places a red-haired woman came out. Katerina, arriving at the lobby, I'd better have the information, the woman growled. Oh, Katerina, said a voice that made the woman sigh irritably. Katerina, show yourself, Baba, she said, watching an orange liquid coming out of the walls and beginning to take shape. Hey, Lady Katerina, you are so mean, he said like a child. Katerina, what does a pathetic Hyodo Issei want with me? Growls. My name is Slimer. I think her fights with Aatrox make her forgetful. I think that's why you had hex with an Issei and he took your son, Badar. Splat. The slime's head is torn off but reforms. Katerina, don't think that having perfect immortality will stop me from killing you, she growled as she transformed. Slimer, oi, how hysterical, but Lord Darkeye ordered me to deliver this to you, he said, handing over a folder that the redhead shaves and returns to normal and begins to read it while mission accomplished. Cha-cha melts and disappears. Katerina, ignoring him, reading Dimension DXD D45KY very well, soon you will see us, Deker, she said, licking her lips. Maybe a threesome of parents. Mother's son would not be bad. Disappeared in red fog. Deker walked quietly with his son. Riak, Dad, how long will we be in this city? Said the boy, playing at not stepping on the lines on the ground. Deker, about 2 more days. Riak, I understand, Dad, said the boy. Then he sees some children playing. Dad, can I go too? Deker, no, looking at his son, what did I tell you about approaching other children? Riak, don't do it because it's dangerous. Deker, now go sit down and I'll be right back, he said, going to a fairly crowded grocery store. Riak, sighing sadly, he goes to sit on a bench and looks at his feet. Why doesn't Dad let me be with other children, he thought, looking at the children playing, and then he notices a girl alone on another bench. Girl, looking at her puppet. Riak walks towards the girl. Hello, the girl just looks at him. My name is Riak, what is your name? Puppet, you came to bother her, said the puppet in a funny voice. Riak, oh no, that's not my intention, he said, moving his hands in denial. Puppet, the puppet, inspects the child. Elsewhere. At the Gremry mansion, a certain redhead was arriving, saying goodbye to 2 women in overly provocative clothing. So at the same time tomorrow, smiling. Woman 1, The hex is good and the pay is good, so count on that, handsome. She winks at him and walks off with her partner, swaying her hips. X enters the house where a red-headed MILF was. Rias, totally angry. X, what does this mean? X, for the love of Lucifer, Mom, it's not that big of a deal for us, rolling her eyes. Rias, that's not how I raised you. You should lose your virginity to someone you love. X, Mom, nobody cares about virginity these days, both men and women. Turns his back. I'll be in my room. Rias, X comes back. We haven't finished talking, X. But the redhead has already disappeared from her sight. GGRRR. With her hand she throws and breaks some vases that decorated the entrance, but she remembers the words she had just said. You must lose your virginity to someone you love. Drip. 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 Tears streamed from his eyes as he laughed sarcastically. Rias, hee hee, not even I could follow my own words, she said, laughing while her face shed tears. Chapter 4. In the previous chapter, Ryuk was talking to a girl with a puppet that speaks for her. Ryuk, may I know your names? Puppet, I am the great and amazing Mako, he said, moving his hands in a diva pose. Ryuk, he laughs a little. Puppet, and she is the beautiful Yoshino. Ryuk, yes, she's pretty, he said, causing the girl to blush and cover her face. Marionette boy, you're already a heartthrob. Ryuk, okay? Without understanding that a group of children approach. Kids 1, look, she's the one without parents, said his 3 friends, mockingly together. Puppet, hey, stop bothering Yoshino, the puppet spoke. Boy 3, look how retarded, he mocked, pulling the puppet, but the blue-haired girl doesn't let him. Boy 2, that's why no one wants to be with you, orphan, he pulls her hair, making the girl start to cry. Ryuk, let her go. Pushes Boy 3, making him let go of the puppet. Boy 1, what's wrong with you? He grabs him, but Ryuk kicks him in the nose. MOM, he shouted. Then a woman arrives, if you can call her that, dressed as a teacher, and she was the boy's mother. Ryuk, is that his mom? He thought. Teacher, what's going on? She said, arriving, seeing the injured child 1 and the other 2 helping him. Your brat again. Toshiba starts to shake. Teacher, look, Ryuk, and who are you? Boy 1, he hit me, he said, accusing Ryuk. Teacher, look, delinquent takes him by the arm. Ryuk, let me go, he said, trying to get free. Teacher, I have enough to put up with this orphan without putting up with another one, she said, raising her hand to hit him, but something squeezed her arm. Deker, may I know what you are trying to do with my son? He said, holding the teacher's arm. Ryuk, Dad. Teacher, who the hell are you? Trying to get loose. Deker, I squeeze his arm. Master, GAA, grit of pain falling on the Ryuk. Deker, he lets go. What happened, son? Seriously. Ryuk, those kids were hurting Yoshino. Child 2, he's lying, he said, but freezes at Deker's gaze. Boy 2, peeing in his pants. Teacher, so you are the father of this criminal, and you have the nerve to hurt a woman. Deker, you are anything but a woman, he said, passing by the woman. Teacher, what did you say, idiot? She said, trying to hit him, but Deker did the following. The woman falls on her back with her nose broken and faints. Boy 1, MOM, he said, crying. Deker, Ryuk, let's go. Then he looks at the girl who was scared. That girl has a very strong spiritual energy, he thought as he turned around. Boy 3, this is your fault. He pushes the blue-haired girl and raises his hand to hit her. Yoshino closes his eyes but doesn't feel the blow. When he opens them, he sees Ryuk holding the brat's hand. Ryuk, don't touch her. His eyes change color. Child 3, let's go, and runs. Ryuk, his eyes return to normal. Are you okay? He is hugged by the girl. Mako, you are the knight in shining armor of Yoshino, he said, making the boy blush. Ryuk, it's nothing, he said, playing with his feet. Deker, Ryuk, I won't repeat it. Let's go, he said with his arms crossed. Ryuk, oh okay, looks at Yoshino, goodbye, leaves with his father. Yoshino, Mira su Marianita. Mako, I'm with you, said the puppet while the girl watched father and son walk away. 2 hours later. Father and son had set up camp near a river. Deker, preparing dinner, go wash at the Riak River. Riak, yes, father, he said, taking all the bathing things and going to a river. Deker sees how he leaves and his hand changes to a more monstrous one that begins to turn into stone. Tsk takes out the canteen and drinks it all, and his monstrous arm returns to its original color and changes into a normal human hand. I'm starting to need it more often, he said to himself, putting away the empty canteen. At this rate I won't be able to be more than 2 days away from a leak. Looking at the bonfire fire. Riak. The boy was naked in the water washing his hair. Riak, what was that? I felt I should tell Dad, he thought while cleaning his face, but he hears a buzzing sound and by pure instinct he jumps, dodging an arrow. What? He said, seeing the arrow buried in the water. He quickly gets out of the water and puts on the towel. Who's there? He said, a little scared, since it is the first time he feels that he is in mortal danger in those bushes. A girl of no more than 13 years old comes out with a bow, looking at Riak with total repulsion. Huntress, how dare you pollute these waters, pig? She said, spitting out the last bit. Riak, what are you talking about? He said, confused, and then he sees that he is loading another arrow. Wow, I didn't miss anything. Hunter doesn't respond and prepares to shoot again, when she feels something touching her throat. Deker, drop the bow or my voice will be the last thing you hear, he said, with Uramasa unsheathed at the neck of the hunter. Huntress, you don't give me orders, pig, she said, spitting at Deker, who was about to end the girl's life when he gave her a Spartan kick, sending her to the ground and cutting a bunch of arrows that were aimed at him. Deker, show yourselves, I know where you are, he said while Riak was already dressed, although still wet. Riak, Dad? He said, standing behind him. Deker, stay close, he said, when more than 20 girls who were no older than 14 came out of the trees with hateful looks directed at the older man, also a few growling albino wolves. You are very brave and stupid to attack one of my hunters, said a girl dressed the same as the others, only they all showed her total respect. Deker, he tried to kill my son, he said seriously. Your son must have been like any stupid man, he said simply. Both of them would be good animals to hunt, he said, raising his hand. Deker, in a quick movement, he makes a horizontal cut, making the girl dodge it, and other hunters do the same. 2. How did you dare to attack my lady? Said the girl next to Artemis, who had some elements different from the clothing of the other girls, possibly an identification of her rank. Calm down, Zoe, he said, calming his lieutenant. It's obvious you're not normal, man. Deker, who are you? He said, pointing at her with a Uramasa. Deker, I have nothing against you, Greek. This is your last chance to retreat, he said, ready for a battle to the death. Artemis snorts in annoyance. You pigs are really arrogant, she said, looking at Zoe, and he just nods. Zoe, hunters, she said, making everyone prepare their bows, and the wolves growl. Deker, I was alone looking at his son. Riak, scared by the situation. Deker, run, he said, and then saw in slow motion the arrows coming at him. He takes a breath and does the following. Using Uramasa, I create a type of air barrier, making all the arrows miss, causing all the hunters to be dismayed. Deker disappears and appears in front of Zoe, who didn't have time to react. Artemis, Zoe, she shouted, but just in time a hunter pushed Zoe. Flash. Splash. The last thing the hunter saw was Deker's eyes. Huntress 6, we've messed with an invincible monster, was her last thought as she fell on her back with a large gash from her right elbow to her left waist. Hunt 6, Laura, shouted one of the hunters, who seemed to have known the dead hunter for quite some time. Artemis, putting a gloomy face, you will pay for this, she said, taking out her own bow while an arrow appeared and lit up white. Deker, your arrogance was the death of him, he said, cutting more arrows. Ryuk. The boy was watching everything hidden in a rock. Riak, Dad, he said in a whisper, but dodges a dagger that sticks in the stone that belonged to the hunter who tried to kill him. Hunter, it's your fault, Laura, she said in total anger. Riak, no, that's not true, he said, stepping back. Huntress, grr. She throws herself at the boy, who dodges but rips his clothes. He dies. She cuts Deker's son's arms. Riak, he screamed in pain, holding his wounds, but he petrified when he saw his hand. Huntress, now die like the pig, you are ready to give him the final blow. But. Rias. Hunter, spits blood what? Sees the boy's eyes. Rias, kill was the only thing he said, taking out his arm and kicking the hunter to the battlefield. Huntress 16, Jess. She shouted to see the child with his eyes covered walking to the battlefield. Deker, Rias. Run! He shouted while using Uramasa. Rias walked without caring when. Everyone stopped, especially the hunters. They had heard the roars of beasts in the past, but this was from an uncontrollable being. Rias's body began to take out while a type of white skin began to cover it, beginning to take a monstrous form. Deker. Oh no, was the only thing Deker thought as he watched his son throw himself at the hunters.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.